Welcome to the Sounds of Encouragement, the place for musicians and music teachers to find support and encouragement to help you stay motivated, creative, and moving forward in what you do best. I'm Melissa Slocum, your host and number one encourager. I currently live in the Atlanta, Georgia area and have my own thriving studio teaching piano to all ages in person and online. I also help other teachers use student goal-based learning and differentiated instruction to increase motivation in their students and increase retention rates in their studios. You can learn more at www.musiclessonpathways.com. Thank you for tuning in to Sounds of Encouragement. Don't forget to subscribe so you get notified of future episodes. Enjoy the following episode. Don't forget to keep listening at the end and be sure to check out all the links in the comments or show notes. As always, I'm here for you, so you can be there for those who need you the most. Reach out to me at soundofencouragement@gmail.com and let me know how I can better support and encourage you. Sam Reti is a guitarist, teacher, and the founder of Muzie.Live. Sam was born in Manchester, England, and raised in North Andover, Massachusetts. He picked up the guitar when he was 12 and never set it down again. He definitely inherited his dad's love of music. Together, they had father and son jam sessions every day after school, Sam on guitar and his dad on the drums. After accepting admission to Berklee College of Music in Boston, Massachusetts, his dreams were coming true following in his father's footsteps. Sam's father toured through England as a drummer in the 80s, opening up for some of the legends like Black Sabbath and Iron Maiden. During his time at Berkeley, Sam lived out some of those dreams by playing at Progressive Nation at Sea, Prog Day, and the All-Stars Tour with his band, Zombie Frogs. Sam also discovered his passion for music education and technology. It all started from a college project where Sam and his dad began creating their first software together, I Want to Practice, essentially a practice app for musicians. Sam was awarded the Achievement Scholarship for his innovation and dedication to the father-son duo's first project together. After graduating from Berkeley, Sam spent his time teaching guitar and continued building innovative tools in music technology with his father. In 2019, they started working on Muzie.Live, an all-in-one virtual music studio for online music lessons and hybrid learning. Today, Muzie.Live continuously leads the industry in innovation to improve virtual learning and enhance music education. With just over 2 years since the official launch, Muzie.Live has grown to over 40 countries globally and hosts thousands of lessons per week. Please welcome my guest, Sam Reti. Welcome to Sounds of Encouragement. My name is Melissa Slocum, and as you just heard, my guest today is Sam Reti. Sam, thank you so much for joining me today.
Hey, thank you so much, Melissa. I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for having us.
You bet. So we have not met in person, but we run in a lot of similar circles on social media, have a lot of friends in common on social media, and a lot of great entrepreneurial friends who have a lot of things in common. And so even though we haven't met yet, we still share a lot of similar kinds of ideas and groups and places where we share a lot of great information. And so I'm really excited to sit down and talk with you a little bit about what your life has been like in terms of encouragement and find out what has kept you so motivated during the pandemic. So I like to start these conversations off with finding out about encouragement and what that's looked like in your life growing up and what those moments have been for you of encouragement and those people, what those have been like for you in terms of encouragement in your life. Can you talk about a couple of people or a couple of moments and what that encouragement has done for you?
Yeah, absolutely. There's, dozens of them throughout my life, of course, but some of the ones that come to mind, especially when it comes to music, I think kind of a funny one is the very first time I ever played a show live was at the high school, with these little cafe things they do on Friday nights. And
Sure.
Kind of like an open mic, right?
Right.
But the whole audience was all the kids you went to school with.
That's tough.
Right. So that might be the most brutal audience on the face of the earth.
Yeah.
So I vividly remember have the guitar, have the amp. I'm in the car. My dad's driving me to the place, and then the panic sets in. Then I'm like, uh-oh, like this is, I can't do this. Like and I was gonna play like a heavy metal song too, so it was sort of like I knew I was in the wrong place. Like I was like so I was really trying to back out, and I remember my dad convincing me that playing in front of your friends and your schoolmates is actually the easiest audience. I don't know how he did it, but for the whole car ride, he just kept, because he used to play music too. So he
Okay.
saying like, oh yeah, I remember when I was in high school, like we would play shows for all our friends, and like he completely lying, of course, but but it worked. So I did end up getting on stage and playing, and I do have a video of it, and it's not great, I did it, and that was the first real experience of, and that was me alone, like playing in front of a room, just me and a guitar, and so that kind of, it was, I could always find that one funny because it's totally based on a lie, but it's sort of with good intention.
Yeah, so. And I would say, boy, if there's any time in life when we are the most vulnerable, right, it is that period of adolescence. And to get up in front of your peers during adolescence alone for the first time is huge. And I mean, kudos to you for getting up there and actually going through with it. So what kind of feedback did you receive?
Well, so it went well. Like the audience did, applaud and everything. Now looking back on the videos, it's funny because, basically it's just stone silence with like 5 claps. But it was, it went well enough that to me at the time, it wasn't a bomb. So that was enough for me to go, oh, okay. And it actually, I mean, it made a drastic change in the immediate lifestyle I lived, because I actually started taking my guitar to school. And so after that, I was that kid. Like I had my guitar strapped around my body every minute of every day. And actually another sort of like micro encouragement that was really random. So I was walking down the hall one day, and I was probably in my senior year, and I had my guitar on and I was just noodling something. And it wasn't between classes. It was like in class time. So nobody else was in the hallway. And I remember seeing the principal walking the other way, and I was actually doing something, that I was supposed to be doing.
Sure.
She didn't know that, but she stopped me, and I thought she was going to yell at me. And she goes, I just wanted to say thank you. And I was just like, for what? She's like, you are, you probably don't realize it, but you're showing all the other kids that are younger than you that you can do whatever you want to do. And that she actually fully supported the bringing the guitar to school every day. So, and I had no idea, as the principal, you're always like, I'm just going to stay away from them.
Right.
That's the big, scary person. But at the end of the day, she was actually like, this is fantastic. We love seeing this. The fact that you actually really don't seem to care, that, you're just wandering around playing the guitar. It's your thing. And even got to the point where in high school, because of that, I took a special program where I was actually finished school around lunchtime every day.
Sure.
I finished all my, credits and everything. And they knew that I was going to go to music school. So they basically gave me those 2 hours to just sit in an office and practice. So, I mean, rare situation, of course, not every school is going to do that for you. But the fact that they were willing, I mean, that put me straight on the path, that I'm on now.
Okay. So did you grow up taking guitar lessons or playing, or were you self-taught?
Yeah. So my dad was a professional drummer in the early.
Okay.
So he toured with, his band was from England, and they toured with like Black Sabbath, Iron Maiden, and big heavy metal. So in the house growing up, there was always a drum set in the basement. But ironically, because he was a musician, he tried really hard not to push music on anybody.
Right.
So my sister played piano for a little bit just on her own. And it wasn't until I was about 13 that I was like, hey, I actually would like to try guitar or something. And then that, once I got the guitar and started playing, it was funny. They said, once I got it, they're like, okay, first year, no lessons. You have to prove to us that you're actually going to play this.
Oh.
And so I started playing, and then within like 2 months, they're like, okay, we'll give you lessons. Like clearly you are interested in doing this. And the great thing was I get home from school at 2 or 3 o'clock. My dad worked from home. So he would come downstairs and we'd have a jam session in the basement for half an hour. And then I'd go and practice and he'd go back up to the office and work. And then, sometime before dinner, we'd do it again. And so every night I was playing, we would jam for an hour or so.
Sure.
And that sort of sparked all like songwriting ideas and the idea of like playing in a band, but I'd never done anything outside of the basement, basically.
Right.
And yeah, so that was sort of my day to day. And then I did take lessons. I actually had a phenomenal guitar teacher. We're still really good friends today. It was kind of cool. My mom sent me to a summer camp for like a band camp for music. And it was up at University of New Hampshire. And we had no idea what to expect from it. But, we went up, we heard there was a little guitar curriculum as part of it. So, and ended up being like 5 days of college classes that were,
wow,
sort of dumbed down for middle school. But you got to go to the classrooms and actually experience what a music school curriculum was like.
Right.
And one of the teachers there was this guy, Eric Clemenzi. And so I took lessons with him that week at camp. And then I found out he only lived half an hour from my house. Oh. So we ended up getting lessons, and I took lessons from him from 12 years, about 14, I think, to 18. So all of high school and middle school. And that was, he was huge in, pushing me forward in music as well, because like my audition, I went to Berklee College of Music, and you have to do it.
Right.
And he went to Berkeley. So that was sort of a big part of like why I wanted to go there. Like I was a big fan of like just him and his style of playing and the music, and the college obviously is very good. So I really wanted to go. So having him, he sort of guided me through the process of what was necessary to get in. And he was really good about being very real and saying basically like, you're in the worst possible demographic you could be in to get into school. He's like, you're a guy, you play guitar, you live in Massachusetts. Like, that's the last thing that they're looking for. He's like, you're gonna have to do something pretty spectacular so that, they're not just, bored of the same thing every time. So he was really good about, honing the skills to make it actually useful. And I did get in, so I have to thank him for that one.
So did music come very easily to you? Because it always strikes me that when children grow up in a household where music is just part of the everyday, and one of the parents is a musician of some kind, or even a music teacher, that it's part of the language, almost like, being able to be fluent in like Italian or in Spanish or something like that. Was music just part of the normal language and it came easily to you when you picked up the instrument?
Not really, actually.
Okay.
So the funny thing is that, so because my dad's a drummer, music, and so his music in particular, heavy metal. So I grew up listening to heavy metal. So we sort of had this, like, that was the thing, but neither of us can sing. Neither of us can like in a bucket. It's really, really bad. So nobody's going around the house singing. My mom's not really musical. It wasn't actually probably until I started playing music that we started playing music in the house, like on the speakers and things.
Okay.
But of course, music had been a part of his life. And I can remember as a kid, like going down on the basement stairs, and he had an electronic drum set. So he was able to like plug in like a iPod to it and play along to songs.
Oh, sure.
So I remember sitting on the stairs and basically like listening to like mini concerts.
Right.
And that got like the spark for it. And that was sort of like, okay, like this is really cool. Because like when my friends would come over, they'd be like, hey, like let's go watch. And we'd spend time watching them play. So I think having that directly in front of me was sort of that influence, but it was more indirect than it could have been.
Sure.
And I'm terrible. Like I can't sing. My ears are awful. I have I'm very much like a 6-hour practice a day, just because if I don't, I literally wouldn't be able to even do the basics.
Sure. But I think sometimes that makes it all the sweeter because you have to work for it.
Yeah, I get frustrated, like especially in college when you meet kids who are just as good at the guitar as you are, and then they're virtuoso on the drums and the piano, and you're like, oh, come on. You're like, there's just not enough hours in the day for me to do that. But yeah, I do appreciate the fact that like I've gotten a good practice ethic out of that. Like I understand, like I started learning the piano, a couple of years ago. And that was one of those things, like I didn't need a teacher or anything because I knew exactly what I needed to do. I just knew
Right.
I needed to apply those things and get it done. And for me, that's just a time commitment.
Right. So you took us through getting to Berkeley. Were there any other points where encouragement changed the course of what you were doing, or people who helped encourage you along the way?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I was actually in college, I went in with the intent to play music and record music in studios. That
Sure.
was the goal. And I was doing that for the first 2 years. I had a band and we were touring, and it was going, pretty well for being, a small little band from Boston. And then that all crumbled basically in a weekend. And
Oh,
so
wow.
was like we had record deals and concerts lined up and everything that we had dreamed of our whole lives, and it just fell apart, inner problems, and then the whole band just split. So we literally,
Wow.
like a weekend, and I even dropped out of college actually specifically to focus on the band for that semester.
Ah,
So I wasn't going to school. I didn't have a job. I didn't have anything to do. I didn't have a band. That was probably the worst. That was when I was sort of like, okay, what the heck? Like, where
yeah.
do we go from here? And I found a class that was called entrepreneurship. And I was like, okay, well, that's something. So I signed up for the class, and the teacher in the class, it was actually a dual teacher class. And it was one teacher from MIT and one teacher from Berkeley.
Okay.
And the really cool thing is the teacher from Berkeley had built up a big software company, sold it very successfully, and come back to the college to teach that.
Right.
And the MIT professor was showing sort of more the engineering analytical side of how you.
Oh, okay.
So the class became very much like a startup lab.
Mhm.
So I had this idea for a practice app, and I pitched it to my dad as just a thing. And he was like, that's actually a pretty cool idea. And he's a software developer now. So he was like, what, I could probably whip you up like a little prototype of this thing, and we could see, what it does. So we made this little, gizmo thing on a computer, brought it into the startup lab, and they were like, whoa, like, okay, that's good. Like, you should run with this.
Wow.
So what was really neat is throughout that class, they allowed us to present so every week there was a presenter, and it would be like the CEO of Nike, or, so like Victor Wooten was there a bunch of times.
Wow. Yeah.
So one of the days I got to present to Victor Wooten
Mm.
and some of the other like the Berkeley bass department chair and some other people. And they actually said, they're like, this is really cool. Is this applicable to like colleges? And I was like, well, that was the idea. And so my first trial of my software was with the Berkeley bass department. And it was
Ah,
because of Victor Wooten and Steve Bailey that it went, and so that was sort of like, whoa, okay, this little idea I had on the side. And because everything in my life had basically crumbled
right.
2 weeks ago. And
Right.
then all of a sudden I was starting to see these opportunities. And even one of my other professors from college, he actually invited me back to the college multiple times after I graduated to give speeches about technology and how to use it in classrooms and things like that. So those
Wow.
people were fundamental in sort of giving me that boost, because I didn't have it on my own at that point.
That's amazing. Talk about right place, right time.
Yeah, very lucky. It's one of those things. I was just scrolling through the list of classes because I knew I needed to get back on track for the next semester.
Right.
And I knew I was going to have to take a summer semester to catch back up. And I was like, I was really dreading. So I was like, what can I do to, and I saw this one and I was like, that's actually quite interesting. And then just serendipity, through some luck. And then that company, that little app that I started there was my first product. Then we're on product number 3, and that's what Muzie is today.
Right.
So that whole thing, like, that's how I'm here. So it was pretty direct line after that for me of like, okay, software education, this seems to be my thing.
What an amazing story, though, that reinforces, I think, an idea that a lot of people have a hard time with, which is sometimes you do have to fail and lose all of the plans that you thought were going to work out and just have everything, like you said, crumble in order to be able to do what you were meant to do in the first place.
Absolutely. And like I said just a second ago, this is Musie's our third product.
Right.
That one we got the trial at Berkeley, it failed eventually. The
Yeah.
second one, that one also failed, you know. So you know, it's one of those, like, you really cannot give up. Like, if especially if it's really something that you like. For me, when I got into this, like the first time I gave a presentation in front of a classroom, it just clicked. I was like, oh, I was like, okay, I should have been a teacher. Like
Mhm.
that's what I should have been doing this whole time. And then that also led into my own private teaching. That sort of coincided with being like, wait, I should probably take the skills I actually have and also teach. So
Right. Okay, that makes a lot of sense to me because I had similar experiences in college, or even actually, I can remember back in high school too, having those experiences where you're up in front of people going, wait, this is easy for me. And most people are
yeah,
afraid to death to get up in front of
yeah.
people and talk. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember people asking me, like, you know, like, are you nervous? And I was like, no. They're like, how much have you prepared? I was like, I haven't really. Like, I'm just gonna go up and do my thing. Like, they're like, do you have like notes? I was like, no, I'm just gonna go and speak. And they're like, oh, okay. And then I do it. And after, they'd be like, that was not bad. I was like, yeah, you know, I guess to me, this is just what I, and for me, it's a replacement. So, because I got that for playing on stage, you know, you get that feeling of like,
Right.
this is where I should be. This is the
Right.
right place. And then if you don't have that, and you can, and for me, this new one is even better. It's because I get to see more of a kickback from it, in the
Yeah.
sense that, like, I work directly with teachers, I work directly with students. I see thousands of students. It's like progressing in their music. And that to me is pretty cool to have an impact on the next generation of whatever music's going to be. Like, yeah, I'll take that.
So that's kind of a good segue for my next question, which is, have there been points along the way where other people's expectations of you have sounded like encouragement,
Yeah.
but really are their expectations? And how have you gone about discerning that? Because I think for a lot of people, that's very, very hard to do, is to weed out what is just someone else putting on their expectations, their needs, their wants, versus encouraging you to do what you were created to do. How have you done that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely tricky. I mean, one of the things, like, I think I was, like I said earlier, I got kind of lucky with my dad not pushing music on me. But then there's definitely times when I was practicing, you know, especially towards college, where there was some, like, you know, it was hard to decide, is this encouragement to actually get better, or is this encouragement for the sake of, like, you know, like, hey, actually, like, my motivation is to get you to practice endlessly so that,
Right.
you know, there's more comes from this college that we're going to pay for,
Right.
you know. And either way, at the end of the day, it does work out for you. But I think that probably was the only time I was ever like, what is it that people are looking for from me? Like, in college, you know, there's an expectation that you should be producing or doing something, or at least that's what you feel like,
Mhm.
and or getting ready to produce something of value. So,
Right.
you know, I think what I got lucky with, though, is that a lot of the people in my life have been mentor figures, have been quite a lot older than me.
Mm.
So you know, I maybe there's probably situations that I was naive to, that I wasn't aware of, but on the whole, I felt that they have genuinely had the best interest at heart. And what I would say, though, is I find that it's usually more people my age, or friends or colleagues, that are the ones that are giving me advice
Sure.
that is definitely tainted. And that I've sort of gotten a little bit better at trying to pick out whose motivation is for me to make money to help them, or, you know, or is it, you know, whatever it is. And I think, you know, it's an ongoing process forever. But I have noticed, I think for me, you know, at least people who take on a proper mentor role, I've had enough of those in my life now that I feel like I can kind of tell when you're being honest with me. And
Right.
then people my age, or my colleagues, or, you know, in the field that we work in, or whatever it is, that's when I'm more like, okay, well, there's possibly a direct business benefit for you out of this relationship. So is that what this is, or is this a relationship that's real, and there just
Right.
happens to be other stuff there on the side?
Right.
So yeah, it's tricky.
It's interesting that you bring up, the idea of having such good past mentors, because I think that's a great tool to be able to use to kind of weigh through or sift through exactly those types of relationships. And, you know, if you look back on mentors who were particularly helpful to you, what were some of those qualities that you found that really helped you or resonated with you?
Yeah, for me, I've always found that people who are genuinely honest with you,
Mm,
not the honesty that you want to hear, not
yeah.
brutal honesty just to be an asshole because you want
Yeah.
to be, like real honesty that is going to actually help you in life.
Mm,
That I found is the number one thing. Like if you can see that right away, then you're good. It's also people who take their time to do a little extra or focus directly on you. And I remember another professor I had in college, for my ear training teacher. I was failing the class,
mm.
completely failing, a solid F. And it was simply because I literally just can't sing and my ears are so bad. So he said to me, if you come to every single office hour that I give that's available, I'll give you a C in the class, regardless of the fact that you're probably never going to be able to sing. He's like, I will do it because you'll show me that you're going to do it. So for 4 semesters, I took the same teacher every semester, and
Wow.
I did get better. Like, I don't want people to think like he was giving me some
Right,
cheap,
right,
because the office hours were an extra training session, and
right.
we really did, make me go through the stuff again and everything like that. So nowadays, I can transcribe by ear now. It's 100% because of him,
Right.
and but that's because he was giving me that opportunity and things like that. So, that's probably just another example of someone that's kind of given me that extra attention that has proven that they're genuine about what they mean.
Right.
Like, come to the office hour, show up. I will spend the time if you will spend the time.
Yeah.
And, that to me shows real intent.
Such valuable lessons that you're sharing and passing along, not to be afraid of failure, you
Right.
know, and just try again, and to seek out mentors who can be honest with you and who are willing to invest the time in you. Those are such valuable things to be able to integrate at a young age. And it's hard to do. It's hard to learn those lessons.
100%. And I'd have to say it's all because of the people that were in my life. Like, it's not really my, if anything, you sort of get taken for your own ride when you're, from 10 to 20 years old, right? You're sort
Yeah.
of are stuck around whoever you're stuck around.
Yeah.
You don't really get to choose. So I think I got really lucky, just the people I picked, the classes I took, and I'll always, like, even in high school, like, I still keep in touch with one of my high school teachers. I've always had that sort of relationship with those people. And I think that's just is sort of rolled out and into the rest of life, and hopefully it keeps going. And then
Yeah.
hopefully I can do the same for other people at some point.
Well, I was thinking about that a few minutes ago was, all these things that you've learned from your mentors, I'm sure are things that you are passing along to people you work with and students of yours too. So what a great gift that keeps, yeah, yeah. So, you've had so many things go right even though you've had some things go wrong, you've had a lot of things go right. What happened during pandemic and lockdown? Because, a lot of people couldn't figure it out, and a lot of people just shut down everything they were doing. And it's been an incredibly hard time for the music world, for a lot of musicians.
Absolutely.
What has kept you positive and creative and able to move forward?
Yeah, so I mean, I think my job in Muzie this is another just dumb luck scenario, but it's turned into something amazing. We built Muzie before the pandemic
Right.
with no intent and it was actually had a slightly different purpose. It wasn't even supposed to really be just a virtual classroom. But then, of course, obviously March hits and, oh, okay, so everything we just spent the last 2 years working on, we need to flip it on its head. And it came from the immediate messaging from the people on our platform, all our teachers saying, hey, like, we need help. This is not going well.
Right.
So, that became the motivation immediately was, okay, there's a couple hundred teachers here that are telling me I need some help and my business is going to go under. And
Right.
I'm, oh, okay, well, we're probably in a position to help. So, we worked really hard all through the end of February and early March to flip over the platform to be able to, provide. And then for the rest, for the next 2 years, basically what I've done is every day I meet with, teachers that are looking for a demo of the platform, but really what they're looking for is a solution for the business. They're looking for something to help themselves grow, to help themselves sustain in this crazy time that we're in. So what I love is that the teachers that come in and say, yeah, I mean, I was, down to 4 students at one point. Now they're, 25, 30 students, their roster's back up. They're, that to me, like when we see those, or you get a message from a student who's like, hey, I'm absolutely loving my online lessons. Like, thanks. You're like, cool. Okay. Like we're doing something here.
Yeah.
And so for me, it was watching what was there thrive in the weirdness,
Yeah.
So as hard as it was for everybody, I think I got a really unique position of being able to sort of provide a helping hand in any way that we could. And for all of 2020, or for at least the first half of it, no, for all of 2020, I think. I can't remember now, but we gave the program away for free for at least the first 9 months. Just to be like, hey, take it, get going. Like this isn't about making money off people. This is about just making sure that businesses stay. And actually the real reason is that my guitar teacher that I took lessons with, he was the first user on our platform.
Oh, okay.
He's supported me my whole life. And then, so I said like, hey, I've got this thing. Do you want to try it? And he was like, this is great. I'm back in business. Like, thank you. So then it was like, okay, we've got something. So that's when it really started to click. And it's, sort of comes full circle that it's those people in the early days that's kind of cool. Now that's my way of helping them. So.
Yeah. I have to say, I can sort of relate, because the idea of being able to help other people through a really dark, difficult time is so incredibly rewarding. And it's not about money, right? It's not about like gaining popularity or something, but just like you said, that feedback that you get that, oh, what you did just helped me stay open. It helped me in my business. That kind of feedback is just incredible to help those of us who are creative to keep ourselves going and keep things going for others.
100%. Yeah. The feedback, I mean, that's, as a musician, that's sort of what we thrive off of, is I can't play a concert. I can do a demo, and the demo, I can see the teachers light up. I can see the problems being solved. And then I hear from students that they're loving their lessons and that everything's going well and that the studios are growing. It's like, okay, cool. I'm good.
Yeah.
That, and again, we're lucky. Like, it wasn't even planned to go that way, really. We just sort of right place, right time, but, making the right decisions and just sort of being there to support and have people support you. So
right. And I think some people would call that, serendipity. It seems like that's been a theme in your life, at least, that you've been right place, right time for a lot of things. And other people would say, no, that's providence. That's, that's happened for a reason for you. But either way, the good news is clearly you have been able to meet needs that were out there, and you were able to be in a position to just hit those and hit the ground running.
Yeah, and I think with any of those, luck, the famous quote is like, luck is preparation and opportunity.
Yes.
It's like you can be in the right place at the right time, but if you don't have the right thing, then there's not much you can be able to do with it. Like, so that's that, like going back to all those mentors and all those opportunities, that's sort of set me up to be in those positions where I go, well, actually, I do know what I'm going to talk about. I do know what I'm saying. This is true. I can help you. And the last 2 years, because before this, it was a little bit, but not nearly to the level that we've experienced over the last 2 years, where, integrating sort of really into the community of teachers and really meeting everybody. And it's pretty amazing.
Now, can I ask, I'm going to be a little maybe personal here. You don't have to answer if you don't want to, but I also know being an entrepreneur and being a founder and growing a business can be very lonely. It can be very hard. You can also get a lot of negative, feedback. Personally speaking, how have you been able to maintain some positivity, some creativity, and that energy and that enthusiasm?
Yeah, it's not easy. When you said lonely, that gets me laughing. I live in Colorado with my girlfriend and my 2 dogs. and we have no friends here.
Yeah.
Not because like I can't make friends, but the last 2 years have not exactly been conducive to making any friends. So we've literally been around nobody.
Yeah.
So, you know, family might come and visit. That's nice. But yeah, it's definitely lonely. You're by yourself. The negative reviews, they feel very personal. No matter how you try to put those to the side, they will keep you awake at night. Like they, you know, and honestly, it's cliche, but yoga, meditation, exercise, like that really is the crux. I go for a lot of hikes, a lot of snowboarding. That's the kind of thing that I need to do. I have to be outside. I don't mind being alone as long as I can do something with that. So it, you know, and being cooped up in here, you know, working, that's great for, you know, portion of the day, but definitely have to get out there and do something physical. But yeah, I mean, the negative stuff, it hurts, like no matter what you, and especially people, I think, forget, because as a business, it's almost like an anonymity layer. So people are like, they're like, no, I'm attacking the business. You're like, yeah, but I designed every single thing you're looking at. So like, like I made the executive decision on all of it. So if you don't like it and you really hate it, then you know that stings a little bit. So you do have to learn to take it with a grain of salt, because you can't spend your days getting bogged down. But I was actually the other day on Fawn's Family, someone had posted a great article about and how a nemesis can actually be really helpful. And I was reading through that and I was kind of laughing, because I was like, that's how I feel about, like, you know, rival companies or people, angry customers, or people are dissatisfied. It's like sometimes you take that energy and you have to bring it in and be like, all right, I'm actually going to feed off of this, because otherwise you're going to crush me. It's so
and you know, there are a lot of folks who are doing a lot of research and a lot of writing around that too now. And I don't know if you've read Simon Sinek at all. He wrote The Infinite Game. And kind of changing that idea that we don't have to be in competition with one another, right? If we play a different game, which is an infinite game where we do exactly that, we make each other better by sharing and by being real and by seeing in one another the things that we lack, which might be exactly what makes us jealous of someone else and their success.
100%.
I agree. And I love, so we'll give a shout out to Eric Branner and the Fonz team and the Fonz family. That is a fabulous group of entrepreneurs and professionals to be a part of. So it's a great place to sharpen ourselves, but also gain good support as well.
100%. I spend a lot of time in there. Eric's a great guy, talking to, you know, all the teachers in that group. It's fantastic.
So what encouragement would you like to pass along or share with those who are listening or watching today?
I mean, the biggest thing I think I can say is that you've already done the hardest part. So you've made it through the last 2 years. If you're still kicking, like your career's still moving forward, you're good. Like you literally now are unstoppable. So you take that, run with it. Like, you know, and I gave a speech the other day about like using technology to grow your business. You know, take time to evaluate what you're doing. Take a minute to think about, okay, here we are in 2022 now, you know, full 2 years after the beginning of this, and it's not necessarily going away, or if it's going away, it's going to be different. I think we can all accept that. We don't know what it's going to be, but we know it's going to be different. So just roll with the punches. It's going to be bumpy, but if you've already made it this far, you're good. So, you know, I'd take that and just run with it.
What great advice and encouragement, because I think a lot of people are tempted, at least in my area, the chat or the conversation has been, you know, I'm so glad that we're getting toward the end of this, or it feels like the end of this, because I just want to go back to in person and doing things the way I always did them.
And it's like, that's a great wish. I wish it for everyone, but that's also just not reality. And, you know, you've got to move forward. And
because let me ask you this from your perspective. I think that actually, you know, while there's been great growth in the industry and great growth in technology and music teaching, it also means that there's more competition, so that if you are not embracing technology and if you are not embracing platforms, you might end up a little bit behind the times.
100%. I couldn't add anything to it. Just if you don't stay with it, you will fall behind. And now it's faster than ever. So
Yeah.
you really got to keep on top of it. Even 5 years ago when I started my businesses, I didn't know about like Facebook groups on teachers and stuff like that. I had no
Right.
idea. And now those have become integral on staying on top of what's going on, joining the organizations, things like that. Like if you're going to be in the business, you do need to know what's happening. And if you don't adopt technology, if you're not going to offer, if you want to go back to just in person and you're never going to offer hybrid or online or a pre-made course or anything, then I really don't know what to tell you. Like, best of luck. That's all I've got.
Yeah. Yeah. And, there might be some people who will be wildly successful still. And
Absolutely.
that's great. That's great. But yeah,
Fantastic. But
yeah.
for the normal everyday teacher, I don't think it would be the wisest decision to not at least poke into some of these other opportunities.
I agree. Diversification, I think, can only help at this point.
Absolutely.
Well, let me switch over to the music, your top 5 songs of encouragement that you wanted to share today. So let me share screen and we're going to dig into this first one. And you've already talked a little bit about how metal is part of your background. And so I love that you've made some really fabulous choices here. The first selection, we're going to hear just about 10 seconds of a song called Glasgow Kiss by John Petrucci. Here we go. Go listen to this whole track because this is really amazing.
Yeah, that's one of my favorites. So that song's pretty special to me because that was my audition piece for Berklee.
Oh, it was.
Yeah, so so most kids probably don't do this, but since my dad was a heavy metal guy, as a child, I went to a lot of concerts.
Right.
Namely, mostly heavy metal concerts.
Right.
Definitely the youngest in the crowd, most. I remember must have been 2007, so it was probably in 7th grade. I think maybe just out of 6th grade. We go to see a concert, and it's John Petrucci and some other guys, and he plays that song live. And I remember thinking when I saw it, that's the one. I was like, that's the song I'm going to play. I didn't even really play the guitar at that point. That's like months of just having one and being like that. And I remember coming out of the concert, and my dad and our friend that we go to all our shows with, they both go, oh, that Scottish song that he played was phenomenal. And I remember thinking like, yeah, I got this. That's the one. And then 5 years later, or 6 years later, I think, that's what I actually played for my audition. But the funny thing is, I actually went home that night, printed off the music for it, and started learning that day. So it literally took me 5 years to actually learn how to play it. It's really complicated song. It's like 7 minutes long, and it's got a lot of stuff going on. And I was nowhere near that skill level at the time.
Sure.
But I just knew I wanted to do it.
But what motivation, right?
Yeah, I don't know what it was. It's just something about, I heard it and my brain was like that. And maybe it's like, cause I'm from England and I grew up in America, and maybe there's something that was like, oh, I relate to that. So I wanted to like keep it around or something. I don't know, but it latched in, it hooked, and it stuck with me forever.
And is it still a go-to for you when you pick up your guitar?
Yeah, so I'll still play it. The funny thing is, attempting to play it now is more of the reality. Is so I'll more often than not, I'll play the first bar and be like, I don't torture myself today. So I haven't actually heard the whole song in a long time. The only sad thing about that song is I don't have a single recording of me playing it.
Oh,
I played it maybe 15,000 times or something, like some obscene amount. I played, 6 hours a day, maybe 100 times a day. Like I was really on that like regiment kind of practice thing, and I never recorded it.
Yeah. That's so interesting because I have a few pieces like that on piano where I played them when I was, in high school and early college, and they were really phenomenal. They were, pieces that I had to perform for judges and play for competition. Now to sit down and like, I can get through the first 2 pages, but page 6, let's not go there.
Yep. That's how I feel with a lot of it.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, that's why we teach
Yes.
and not perform on stage anymore. Let's go to the second piece. This is Trevor Hall. Let me share screen. And we're going to hear a little bit of a clip if it'll share. Here we go. So this is a song called Wishman.
'Cause he said, hey, wish man, tell me what's your wish. Close your eyes, all we got is this. Angels speak of a thing called bliss. Close your eyes.
Oh, I hate to cut that off, but I have to talk about that one.
Yeah, so Trevor Hall's an interesting one. So growing up, heavy metal all day, every day. So it wasn't until like halfway through high school that a friend of mine showed me Trevor Hall. And that was honestly, I can say the first time I had ever listened to anything that really wasn't hard rock or heavy metal.
Okay.
So I was like, whoa, okay, this is completely different.
Yeah.
And I was like, I like this, it just mellows you out instantly. And so the friend that showed it to me was like, well, he's actually playing in Connecticut like next week. It just happened to be on like a half day school day or something.
Oh, sure.
Where he was like, if we leave like right now,
right,
we'll get there in time. And so I was like, okay, let's go. So we just hopped in the car, drove down, and that was sort of my first outing to a concert with a friend by ourselves. Okay. And we saw him play in basically a dive bar at that point. And it was like, okay, this guy's really good. Like, I like this music. This is nothing like I'd ever experienced. And so the cool thing is that he sort of stuck in there in my life forever. Like, each album has sort of been like at a different chapter of what I've been going through. So I can listen to any given song and be teleported right back to that. Right. So like I lived in Vermont for a year, and ironically, the Green Mountain State album was released by him, which is the Green Mountain State is Vermont. And so the songs are all written in a cabin in the woods in Vermont. So I mean, that, that has a pretty tight tie to that time of my life. And, other songs and things like that. This one in particular, though, I just love the backstory. Is he was sat down on a bench and there was a homeless guy next to him, and the homeless guy said to him, if you had one wish, what would the wish be? And he thought about it for a while and basically said, world peace. And the homeless guy goes, I'd have a bottle of whiskey. And he thought, and then he started thinking about how he was trying to solve all the world's problems when a guy's literally sitting next to him was those problems that he was completely ignoring. And so like the whole what's your wish is sort of like, what's your real wish? Like, what are you really going to do? Like, yeah, you could wish for world peace. That's great. Everyone wants that. But what are you really going to do? Yeah. How are you actually going to impact people in real life? Right. And that song to me is sort of the one that's sort of stands out.
It is a great perspective shift to say, well, what is my life's purpose, or what am I here to do? Those are the big questions. But then when you ask a different question, which is, well, what am I meant to do today? What am I meant to do in the next 10 minutes? Yeah, it does change the perspective. And going from such a macro question to the micro, what's in front of me right now that needs my attention that I can do, is usually a much more powerful way forward.
Absolutely.
So this next band that we're going to hear, that we're going to take a hard left turn here. I had never heard of this group until you shared this. And I was like, wow, I have to dig into some of their other music. So we're just going to hear a little clip. This is called Caravan Palace by Lone Digger. Here we go. Go listen to this whole song. Such high energy, such fun music, such great musicians. Talk about this one.
So, okay, so this is my happy song. This song plays, I immediately start smiling. You cannot help it. You start jiving. Yeah. You're there. You're like, okay, cool. This is fun. I have no idea where I first heard it. I actually think it was on a commercial somewhere, and I like shammed it and was one of those like,
right.
And then later on, I was like checking through and I was like, what's that? I played it. And I was like, oh, okay. I listened to it a couple of times. I was like, nice. Started playing it a lot more around the house, like started becoming sort of the jam when you're like bad mood, put that song on. Everyone started dancing around. And then what I didn't know actually was I thought it was just a DJ and a girl singing. I didn't know it was a band. And then I found out that it's a real band. And that's when I was like, oh my God, these guys are incredible.
Yeah, they are.
I had no idea that those horns were really horn players and that there was really a string player and they had a marimba player live. Like it's one of those, I love that kind of stuff. And so when I saw that, I was like, oh, wow, okay, these guys are amazing. And then actually, funnily for Christmas, I got my girlfriend got me tickets and we're going to go see them in a couple months. It's their first tour in the US.
That's fabulous.
I think they're French, so they haven't done much tours out here. So sort of good timing too, because I was like, it's one of those bands I just assumed I was never going to see. And then all of a sudden popped up and I was like, oh, sweet.
There's so much going on in that video. And I it's so funny that you said, they're French and that they're doing their first tour because one of the things that came through to me anyway when I watched that video was this is almost like cabaret burlesque.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, which is like, wow, what a wild fusion of different things. And go watch the whole clip because and if you're watching this on YouTube, click on the show notes and click the link for the whole video. If you are listening to this on a podcast streaming service, go find the YouTube video. You're going to see these musicians. They all play like 3 or 4 different instruments and they're just fun to watch as musicians. So go watch the video.
Yeah.
We're going to take a turn back in time. We're going to go back to more of where I grew up. 70s. This is Slade. Oh my gosh, this took me back. This is Far, Far Away. We're just going to listen to a short clip here. Oh, go listen to that whole clip. It's so good.
But I love Slade. So actually, funnily, you know how at the end of the year you get your Spotify wrap up?
Yeah.
And it tells you. So last year I got my wrap up and it said that I was in the 0.001% of Slade listeners. Meaning quite literally, I think I'm the number one Slade fan on earth. So you're welcome, guys.
That's so fabulous. Okay, well, so if you're watching or listening, go to the link. We're going to contribute. We're going to push that number forward.
Yeah, I mean, they're a great, they're a funny band. So they're my mom's favorite band. So that's sort of how that sort of came to be. But they have a Christmas song that is played in England absolutely everywhere. It's actually the most played Christmas song in the world.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it beats Mariah Carey's. It beats Bing Crosby's. It's always Slade's "Merry Christmas, Everybody" is always the number one. And so it's funny but no one in the US knows about it.
Yeah.
It's basically a desert for them here.
Right.
So it's always one of those bands I've enjoyed just sort of showing people, being like, and their music's eclectic. They're phenomenal musicians.
Yeah.
I never got to see them live, but my uncle used to run clubs in England. He said that they were one of the best bands live he's ever seen. I love the message in that song too. It's sort of about they're touring all over the world and basically life's still not that great. They're trying to get themselves, if your head's up in the clouds, you got to keep your feet on the ground. And if you don't, you're going to get lost pretty quickly. And so I just enjoy that message, but I just love the band. And the video is just, I talk about 70s. 4 guys in white shiny suits.
I know, right?
I just get a crack watching it.
Yeah, but all great musicians. Yeah. Wow. Okay. Well, now we're going to take another hard left turn here and go back to metal. And we're going to let you talk about this one in a second. This is Devin Townsend performing a tune called Kingdom. Again, you're going to have to go listen to the whole track here because there's a lot going on in this one. And he's quite the performer. So here's just a small clip. have to stop it there. Talk about this one.
Yeah, so this one is one of those that first time I ever heard it was, I think a friend just showed it to me in college one day, and we're sitting in dorms, music gets passed around music school all day, every day, right? And so this was the one that when this played, when he sings that first note, I was like, what is this? That voice was mind-blowing to me. So the cool thing is that I heard the song, I then became a huge fan of his music. And then about, maybe 6 months later, not even, my band got invited to go and play a festival. And it was a Progressive Nation at Sea. So it was like 50, not even like 20 progressive rock metal bands put on a cruise ship out to the Bahamas.
Wow.
And he was on the tour.
Oh my gosh.
He's on it. A bunch of other, like the guys from Yes were there. And like, it was a mind-blowing experience. But for me, I was super fan of his. He played twice. I got front row each night to watch him play. But the cool thing is, because I had a like VIP band pass on, at the end of the show, he just was hanging around and he saw that I was in a band and not one of the guests. So he just came over, sat down next to me, and we just started chatting. And so I got to talk to him for like an hour just by myself. Just nobody, no one bothered us for the whole time. They just told weird, funny stories that were like nothing important. It was just, but so refreshing to like meet your idol and be like, he's as cool and weird as you think he is. It's like, I was like, this is, and live, that's literally what he sounds like. It's no editing. He can do that. It's kind of unbelievable. Yeah. So for that one, it's, when I hear that song, it just gets me going. Cause I think about like that week of my life was like, that was we were signing autographs, playing shows, and, at the level of all of our heroes, only for 1 week, but that was my sort of rock star lifestyle for the week. So I always think about that. And that was, when everything was riding high in the band and everything was going well as it could have been. So that when I hear that song, to me, it's just, I kind of get put right back there. And then I also just remember like it was the best, it's gone, but I can recreate other things like that now.
Yeah.
And so it's cool to have that song sort of just around, and it's so powerful that, I mean, you can't help but not feel like, oh, I gotta go run or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
I should be exercising or like running up a hill.
It is. It's a powerful clip or powerful song. And so go listen to the whole track, because I sort of, and when I listened to it for the first time, I was sort of like, I'm not sure. I'm a little unsettled and I do feel like I need to go do something.
Yeah. It's not, it's hard to sit and listen to.
Yeah.
Because it's not there to be just listened to, I think. Because like,
and I wouldn't have pegged this as an encouragement type of song, but knowing the connection to your life and the time in your life and the events and meeting him personally, now I understand why that's such a positive thing for you. But I was like, I wonder why this is encouraging to you.
and growing up as a heavy metal child, like my view of like what a song that could like get you going through the day is like, for me, it's like and Black Sabbath and Devon Town, like that's sort of, that's my like pick me up music. And all these songs just played. So it's kind of funny. It's definitely different.
Yeah. No, but that's awesome, because we all, I think a lot of people will relate to that. Not every piece that's encouraging or song that's encouraging is going to be a feel good type of a song.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think we need different music for different moods.
100%. And that's the cool thing about music. I mean, there's literally a song for everyone.
Yeah.
I mean, the only thing I don't like is I've heard this a bunch, is that you're never going to hear your favorite song because there's too much. Isn't that the worst? You're never, ever going to hear your favorite song. But what I take that is go and listen to as much music as you could possibly listen to, trying to find it, because, it's in there somewhere.
Yeah.
So, I'm a big fan of like streaming platforms that allow me to go and find music I would have never heard of. Yeah.
And I, now that I think about that, when you say that, I think, that's probably true, because I have a lot of favorites. And it's also why in this podcast, I don't ask people for their favorite songs. I ask for their songs of encouragement.
That would be a nightmare list if you tried to give me 5 favorites.
But even top 5 songs of encouragement is hard because I've tried to do my own list and I'm like, well, can I get it down from 10? Okay, can I get it down from 8? It's hard.
Yeah. I also think that if you asked me next month, I think it would be 5 different songs, probably for the same 5 reasons though. But these are the ones that when I'm hearing them, at least in my life now, they're hitting me with this like, ooh, okay, like I've got this. And so that to me is the musical encouragement.
Yeah. And I think that speaks to how we all evolve and change too. So is there any other word of encouragement or anything else that you would like to share with those who are listening or watching today?
Yeah, just keep plugging along. You got it. This is just simple. Just keep going. That's all it takes sometimes, is just keep one foot in front of the other.
Yeah. Sam, this has been a wonderful conversation. Thank you so much for being on the podcast today. Thank you for joining me.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I've had a wonderful time.
No problem. So thank you all for listening to Sounds of Encouragement. You can find the show on all streaming platforms, and you can reach out to me personally at soundoфencouragement@gmail.com for any personal encouragement you might need. Thanks again for tuning in. Take care. Thank you for listening. Please click on the show notes to learn more about my guest and to listen to their top songs of encouragement. If you have found value in these podcasts, please share the podcast with those you know, leave a positive review, or support the show at buymeacoffee.com. Sounds of Encouragement is a podcast production of Music Grow LLC, part of growing musicians and teachers everywhere. Sounds of Encouragement is hosted, produced, and edited by Melissa Slocum. To get in touch, contact soundoфencouragement@gmail.com. You can also find Sounds of Encouragement on Clubhouse. Drop in weekly for a dose of personal encouragement. Theme music by Melissa Slocum and Steve Tressler. Music mixed and mastered by Steve Tressler. Thank you to Steve Tressler and Christina Lopriori, who encouraged me to do this in the first place. And remember, I'm here for you, so you can be there for those who need you the most.